Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to be showing you exactly how to set up Google Analytics with Nextjs 14. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to be setting up a brand new Nextjs 14 application. So what I'll do is go to my desktop and create a new folder here. I'll call this new folder Next 14 Google Analytics Tutorial. I'll open up this folder inside of my terminal by right clicking and clicking on open in terminal, and here I can run the command npx create next app at latest, and we can run / to create it in the current directory. When the command runs, it will ask us a series of default questions. I'll just select all the default options and click enter. Once the app loads, I'll be back. So our brand new Next.js application has now finished setting up. I'll open it inside of Visual Studio Code by typing code dot press enter, and this opens up Visual Studio Code with our application loaded inside. So this is what the default application folder structure looks like. I can go to view, I can click on terminal to open up the integrated terminal, and I can run npm run dev to launch the application on our local server in our browser. So now our application is running and it has started. I can control click on this link to follow our local server in our browser. So this is how the default application looks like. I'll go back inside the code and I'll start by getting rid of some of the code that we don't need. So inside of the app folder page.tsx, I will take everything apart from the parent main tag and I'll get rid of it. And also get rid of these default class names because we don't need any styling right now. I'll just leave an h2 tag which says Nextjs setup with Google Analytics, and then I'll copy this down and change this to a paragraph tag. Let's go back to the browser and see how the app looks right now. It is appearing to us in dark mode. Let me just get rid of the dark mode as well. So I'll go inside globals.css and get rid of this styling. And now when we see the application, this is what we get. So let me just add a class name of font-bold and text-3xl to the heading, and I'll also get rid of the image tag. So this is the setup for our Nextjs application, and now we can proceed onto Google Analytics to first make an account and then integrate that account with our Nextjs application to track visitors and activities on the website. So to set up my Google Analytics account, I'll open up a new incognito tab and head over to analytics.google.com, and here I can create an account. I'll leave these options as default, click next. Then I'm required to create a property. I can use any name. I'm using my Nextjs website. I can select my reporting time. Since I'm in the United Kingdom, I'll be selecting that. And I can select my currency. I'll be selecting British pound for the currency, and I can click next. Then it asks us for some business details. We can choose an industry category. I'll be choosing computers and electronics, and let's choose a small business size for the purposes of this tutorial and click next. It asks us for the business objective, so I can click on all these and click create. I can agree to the terms and conditions, and now we're going to start collecting data. For that, we need to create something called a data stream. So since we're creating this setup for a web application, we'll be selecting web from here. We can choose a website name. We can name this stream. We can click create and continue. So this is now our stream. This is the URL that this stream is for. If I click on this, I can get some information. So we have a stream name, we have the stream URL, which is basically the URL that this stream of data will track. We have something called the stream ID to uniquely identify the stream, and we have a measurement ID which we will use to set up Google Analytics in our Nextjs application. Once we have our data stream set up, the next step is to go into the Nextjs application and set up Google Analytics here. So what I will do is I'll go to the browser and open up the Nextjs documentation. So I can go to Google and type Google Analytics Nextjs. There's a link pointing to their official documentation which tells us how to do this. There are two ways to do it. First is through using the next script tag to load the Google Analytics script into the Nextjs application. The second way to do it is through using the next third party's Google package, which is a package by the Nextjs itself, so we'll be using this way to do it. So let's start by installing the package in our application. We'll start by running the command npm install at next/third parties and click enter. So now the package has been installed, and now let's go to the back to the documentation and see what the documentation says. So from the documentation we have to import Google Analytics from the package that we just installed, and then we have to use that package in our root layout file. So I'll copy the command from the documentation, and going back to my code, I'll go to app/layout.tsx and I will paste the import on top of the file, and then just before the body tag, I'll use the Google Analytics tag that we imported above, and we have to provide it a Google Analytics ID, that Analytics ID that we can get from our data stream. But instead of pasting the ID directly here, what I'll do is I'll include it as a environment variable. So here we can see that our Analytics ID is there. It starts from G dash, and yours will start similarly as well. So let's just copy this value, and then we'll go to our code and we'll create a new file called .env.local in the root directory. I'm going to declare a variable called next_public_Google_analytics_ID and assign it the value we just. That is done. We can now reference this variable in the layout.tsx, and we will include the exclamation symbol after that to show TypeScript that this is a non-null expression. Once this is done, this should be it for our Nextjs application Google Analytics setup, and we can verify it by going to our browser, opening up the console, typing in data layer. The response that we get from here is your Google Analytics ID over here, and then some information related to the Google Tag Manager, which should mean that our application setup is now successful. So when we were setting up the stream, we gave it a stream URL, which means that Google Analytics will track this URL to give us reports on our activity and visits. So that means that we'll need to deploy our site somewhere. Right now, our website is on our local system, but we'll need to deploy our website somewhere. So for that purpose, we'll use Vercel and sign into Vercel with my GitHub account. So once we are logged into Vercel, we can then use our GitHub repository. So what we can do is go back to our code and first push whatever we have to GitHub. So once the repository has been loaded to GitHub, we can visit GitHubs. And now back in Vercel, what we can do is we can go to add new project, and we can import the Git repository that we are concerned with, which is this one right here. We can click import, and before we click deploy, we'll have to add the environment variable that we have in our application for it to work correctly. So the way we do it is go to our env local and just copy the entire thing. Now I'm going to go back to the Vercel page, and I'll just hit Ctrl V to paste the entire entry here, and then I can click deploy. So our application has now started building and our deployment is in progress. So I'll pause the video now and come back once this has built successfully. So now our deployment is successful. We can go to the dashboard for this deployment and we can check out the deployment here. It has given us a link as well, which will have our application running. So this is the application running on the online URL. So I'm going to go back to my incognito tab. If we go back to our Google Analytics, we see that now the data collection is active on this, which will basically mean that our Google Analytics setup is successful. So this is how to set up Next.js with Google Analytics. If you like this tutorial, please like and subscribe for more stuff like this one, and let me know what kind of content you want to see down below. I'll be happy to create that. Thank you very much.